in Acts chapter 4 now, and I'm coming to you from our Berlin Library Connections. We're here with our directors, Larry and Terry Lewis. I think everybody who tunes in here already knows about our work with Open Door Libraries, probably is on my mailing list for our updates. But if you're not, all you need to do is send me just a quick request. You can either do it, with the YouTube app, or you can send it to sthomas@newinternational.org. No caps. Okay, Acts chapter 4. While Peter and John were speaking to the people, not after. While Peter and John were speaking to the people, they were confronted by the priests, the captain of the temple guard, and some of the Sadducees. All right, let's look at these people. The priests. Now, the priests were designated officers of the temple. In order to be a priest, you had to be able to trace your lineage back to Levi. That was your tribal and family heritage and lineage. So not just anybody could go to, rabbi school and become a priest. Now, many who were rabbis, maybe even most, were not priests. But the priests, part of their responsibility was to monitor what was going on in the temple. And we have to bear in mind that for the priest, the world divided into two basic categories. There was the Jew and the Gentile, two categories. But for the temple and the priests there, the categories were clean and unclean. And it was their intention, and I even have to say, probably this was not a misguided intention, was to keep those two things separate. Now, there were, another way it could be said is the holy and the unholy. The items within the temple proper, not the courtyard, but the temple proper, were considered holy and clean. This was as the result of certain religious observances that are Levitical in nature. They are described in the book of Leviticus. There were certain periods of time after you encountered a dead body. A woman in her menstrual period could not enter. If you had certain diseases, you could not enter. In other words, it sounds weird to us. Because I don't think there's a church I've ever been. Well, I know there's not a church that I've ever been to where they would say, whoa. You're gonna have to, are you okay to get in here? Which, by the way, is one of the amazing, significant changes that Jesus brought. Okay, we do have a little sense of this. Remember when COVID was raging and we were in a panic as a country, and our leaders were promoting, that's my opinion, the panic. We shut down churches and made it clear, if you are suffering from any of the symptoms, do not go to church, stay at home. And I think that's reasonable. If I think I've got the flu, it'd be uncaring of me to go to work and go to church and interact with people. I'm Typhoid Terry by that point, or actually be Typhoid Thomas. Okay, the priests. Now, one of the things about the priests is that they should have been, as part of their role and duty, they needed to know essentially the fine points of the law. Okay. Second was the captain of the temple guard. The Swiss guard at the Vatican. Well, that's kind of what was at the temple. These were Jewish military people, and their main focus, I got a hair that is bugging the thunder out of me, and I'm gotta, never mind about the vanity. Okay. These temple guards, they could use force to get people out or keep them out of the temple. The captain of the temple guard shows up. Well, it makes sense. If the priests are headed to what they've been alerted as an issue, as a problem, the temple guard will come with them, because it's the role of the temple guard to execute the command or wishes, desires of the priest in terms of who stays in and who is somewhere between ushered out and kicked out of the temple area. And then the third group, who have no official authority. Now, the priests and the temple guards, they had official authority to order people out, to move them out. But the Sadducees, they were just a specific sect of Jewish religious life. There were two primary sects. One was the Pharisees, and these are the ones who had the most outspoken and rigorous and cantankerous encounters with Jesus in the four Gospels. But they were accompanied by the Sadducees, and one of the primary things that separated the Pharisees from the Sadducees was the fact that the Sadducees disbelieved the supernatural. They did not believe in angels or spirits or ghosts. They had a commitment to the law of Leviticus. It's not like, well, they just, they totally were secularists. No. But the Pharisees believed in all of it. The Pharisees would have debates on how many angels could dance on the head of a pin. So that separated them broadly. To me, it's interesting the Pharisees didn't show up here. It was the Sadducees. My dad, goodness, 60 years ago, told me, here's how you remember it. The Sadducees didn't believe in the afterlife or in the supernatural, and they were sad, you see? Okay. Verse 2. These leaders were very disturbed that Peter and John were teaching the people that through Jesus there is a resurrection of the dead. Bing, 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 bing. Okay. That's why the Sadducees showed up. They heard this. Their antenna, their radar was on and active. And when they heard it, they were very disturbed. In other words, the Sadducees thought, wait, whoa. I don't care what else you're saying, but the resurrection from the dead part, that we can't do that. Now there's evidence that the Sadducees were the primary sect from which the high priest came, and then down the line, priests, so that it would be almost like, when I say almost, I don't mean really like, I mean almost like the difference between Democrats and Republicans. And sometimes Republicans are in power and sometimes Democrats are. Well, that's the way it was. The Pharisees and Sadducees were not political parties, although They were fairly political, and they knew how to play the political game, and they did. But okay, seems that the Sadducees were kind of the ruling party at this time in century 1. And the resurrection, the idea that people, that Jesus, and then others would be resurrected from the dead was very disturbing to them because it violated their basic fundamental beliefs. Verse 3. They arrested them, and since it was already evening, they put them in jail until the morning. Whoa, whoa, whoa! So these are like the thought police, Gestapo? Yeah, pretty much. I would want to believe that Jews in Jerusalem basically had freedom of speech, but I think that would be true in greater Jerusalem, but it wasn't necessarily true in the temple, and here is proof of that. So you think about how wrong I'm just going by my own feelings here, but it feels so very wrong to me that Peter and John would have been arrested because they talked about the resurrection from the dead. That's the only criteria represented here for their arrest. Oh, and by the way, remember what time of day it was here? Well, they had come to the temple around 3 p.m. for a time of prayer, which kind of a designated daily time of prayer. And even if which I think is legitimate, if there was a considerable passing of time between when they healed the lame man and now being arrested, confronted by, and then arrested by the priests, captain of the temple guards, and the Sadducees, it wasn't nightfall, we know that, but it was late enough in the day. Luke writes already evening, so we know, probably, evening wasn't until 6 or 7, so there was 3 or 4 hours of time passing here. They threw Peter and John into the clink, which, see, this is a little, I think, a hint into a little bit more about Jewish life, especially in the temple. I don't think they took him down to the county jail. I don't think they took him to the Roman jail. They took them and they put them in jail until morning. I think they put them in jail in a part of the temple complex designated for holding criminals or prisoners. And they held him there until morning. Last thing I want to talk about before I shut her down for today is I am not good at waiting. Peter and John had to wait. They just had to. Well, so do I. So do you. I would be better at waiting, but not a whole lot better, if I knew how long I was going to have to wait. Like when somebody says, I'll be there in 30 minutes, okay, I can wait for 30 minutes. Even if they said it's going to take me 2 hours to get there, I'd figure out how. But if somebody said, I don't know when I'm going to get there, can't even tell you, but I'll get there when I can, that's more difficult for me. God, so far in my life, has not, that I remember, ever communicated to me, you got this much time to wait. It's all, Peter and John didn't know how long they were going to have to wait. They probably thought, well, we're here until morning, because that would have been the custom. That would have been the normal. How are you doing with waiting? It's hard. I hate it. Well, we're going to see some interesting things about Peter and John's waiting in Acts chapter 4 next time we get together for Soul Care with Stevie Boy.